All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Culinary Business Network presented by Feed the Soul Foundation. It's the only membership network where you can connect with like-minded culinary professionals, learn from industry experts, and grow your business all at your fingertips. I'm your host, Karina Fernandez, Program Director of Feed the Soul Foundation. And today is our third Mastermind session. And for today's Mastermind session, let me just pull this up really quickly so you all can see it. All right. Oh, where did this thing go? All right, there we go. That's a better format. Okay, so for today's mastermind session, I have the incredible honor of speaking with an inspiring, very inspiring entrepreneur, Miss Lisa Gutierrez. She is the powerhouse behind Dos Hermanos in Columbus, Ohio. From a borrowed, okay, you all, from a borrowed food truck and $2,000 in savings, they have managed over 20 employees across 5 locations. Lisa has navigated the complex world of payroll. You all know last week we heard from our friends at ADP everything about payroll, but now we're going to dive into what it really means to have some of those challenges as you grow, not only on the payroll side, but also on the leadership and growth, and how Lisa has overcome some of that, some of those challenges, not only with resilience, but with grace. And so today we'll explore, like I said, how she mastered payroll, and as her business scaled, what are some of those lessons learned? And she's going to share some of those with us. And a little backstory about Lisa and her husband, Vicente, launched, and let me just put a picture up there of them. There they are. Her and her husband launched Dos Hermanos taco truck in 2012. And again, you guys heard it. They borrowed a food truck, they had some savings, and they had, these recipes. Vicente is from Oaxaca, Mexico. And so he brought in, his Oaxacan style recipes. And Lisa actually left a decades-long career at the Cheesecake Factory. And who doesn't love the Cheesecake Factory? But she pursued this dream along with her husband, and they have grown significantly. And again, not only including multiple food trucks, but a brick and mortar, and as well as a commissary, and also a brick and mortar also a concept inside a commissary kitchen, as well as other venues that we'll dive into. And Lisa is no stranger to the limelight. She has been featured in various publications, won multiple grants, and has really racked up many other accolades that we'll discuss. But she still manages to give back to her community, and also is a strong leader in her community. And I know we've spoken quite a bit in terms of what it really takes to be a successful business owner. And it's all of that entangled into one. And so I'm going to bring to the stage our friend, Miss Lisa Gutierrez. Woo-woo! Hey, girl, hey! Oh my God! So Lisa is one of my other favorite people in the world, and she, if I was, let's say, a little girl growing up, she would definitely be one of my role models, because she has really taken, this business from, just a concept, and she'll tell us the story, but her and her husband have done an incredible job in their success. And of all places, Columbus, Ohio. Come on, y'all. Come on. So did I leave anything out in your bio, nope. Lisa?
I think you got it all. And Karina, thank you so much for the warm introduction. You're always so generous with that. And it's just been an amazing, amazing journey growing Dos Hermanos. 13 years in business.
Hey, 13. Hey. And, we talk about prevention, right? Prevention. There's a staggering statistic of 60% of businesses won't make it past that 3-year mark. And so we love, kind of leaning in and getting some insights and some nuggets from successful business owners that can walk us through how to do it, right? And how they've done it facing all these challenges. And so let's dive into your story. Tell us a little bit about the background of Dos Hermanos, how it started, why the name, and why Columbus, Ohio.
Yes, thank you. Just phenomenal. I had a great career at the Cheesecake Factory for many years. My husband has been a culinarian for years as well. We are big lovers of the industry. And then I went to take a break from the industry, and he came up with this idea that his friend had this amazing food truck, wanted to know if we would take it and what we could do with it. And before I said yes, the food truck was in the subdivision. And then before I turned around, there was a note on the door that said, please remove the food truck from the subdivision.
Ooh, yes, because we don't know what we don't know, right?
We don't know what we don't know. So we found a place to park it on a very busy road here in Columbus, Ohio, and really just started as a small taqueria on the side of the road. We weren't mobile yet, Karina. We weren't going to festivals yet. We would just open every single day on the side of the road, and customers would come. We would go to local grocery stores and local Hispanic markets and get amazing fresh ingredients like amazing avocados, limes that were so juicy, banana leaves to wrap the tamales. We would use avocado leaves. Like, we were just immersed in creating this amazing food more than we thought of, like today's topic, like payroll or, other things. Just really loving, the first year of entrepreneurship.
Nice. And I guess at that time too, avocados were not $1 a piece. Ay, Dios mío. Yes.
No, they were not.
So talk to me, Columbus, Ohio. Are you from there?
I started the Cheesecake Factory in Boston, Massachusetts. It's number 8. There were only 8 cheesecakes in the whole world, so very early days. And I was brought here to help with the Easton Town Center opening, which is here in Columbus, Ohio. It was one of their largest openings at the time. And that's how I got here to Columbus. That's where I met Vicente. And I don't know what he thought I knew about starting a business, Karina. I had been in restaurant management, and everything was very structured and very well done. And this was something I had never encountered before. But I will share with you and everyone on here that when we decided to start, I had to Google how to start a business in Columbus, Ohio. 1, because I was new to Columbus, and 2, I had never started a business before. And I remember it telling me the first 2 things were you had to think of a name for the business. And then you had to go down to the Secretary of State's office. Back then, 13 years ago, it was in person, no online. And you had to register the business. So I'll share my journey, which I think is a funny story of those 2 things. So I went to Vicente and I says, what do you want the name of this business to be?
Yeah.
And it's so endearing when I tell the story. He said, for me and my brother.
Oh.
Well, that's really strange. Like, is that for me and my brother LLC? Like, what does that mean? Right, Karina? What does that mean?
Yeah.
That mean? He goes, no, Dos Hermanos.
Oh, 2 brothers.
Yeah.
That is so sweet.
So sweet. And I really knew right at that moment that this would be all about family and recipes and tradition and love. And, so many family members work there and so on and so forth. Oh, there's a website. Yay.
Yeah. So is this a resemblance of the brother by any chance? Or
yeah, that's hysterical. Yeah. So this was actually drawn by a college student. So talking about you don't know what you don't know, but he showed up with this drawing and wanted to paint the truck and all these things. And so we called this person the guy, right? Some people think he resembles other things, but really for us, he's just the guy. And it's only one of them, which is weird because it's Dos Hermanos, 2 brothers.
Yes.
Right?
Well, here's the 2.
Oh, there he is. Yay.
We'll give you the 2 there.
Fantastic. But no, my husband and my brother-in-law, they do not have mustaches, but we love this rendition of what we believe is authentic Mexican food.
Nice. Oaxacan for sure. And
Yeah.
we know, the level of, the diverse, culinary experience of the North, the South of,
Yes.
Mexican food is very different. You actually just mentioned something which I was like, oh yeah, that's right. The tamales, right? The tamales, you said you use banana leaves, and other places they use the corn husk. And so that's kind of cool too. Okay, so you got the name,
We
you
got
got
the
the
name.
borrowed food truck.
We got,
What happened next?
we're on the side of the road,
On the
and
side of the road.
we both kept one job because we didn't know if this
Right.
would take off. So I worked in the morning with a lady named Dominga. Dominga was amazing. She taught me so much about food. She'd write these grocery lists of ingredients that I'd never even heard of: carvesa, lengua, like tomatillos. And
Oh,
she'd send me to the markets and I would buy the food, and she'd come back. I mean, she was an amazing, amazing cook, amazing cook. And then we'd switch at 4 o'clock. I would go to my night job, and my husband would come and work in the truck with Dominga's son. And we did that for quite a while. And, as we were thinking about payroll for this interview, I thought, gosh, in those days, there was no payroll. It was just, a
here's
labor.
cash at the end of the day or at the end of the week.
Yeah.
But with food trucks, I guess with food trucks, payroll is literally daily, right?
Yeah. At that point in time, it was to keep it going. And, we bring in a few $100s, Karina, and I would go to the market and spend almost all of it, right? We get more food for the day. And the way that we really paid Dominga and her son George was we, on Saturdays, would go to the larger restaurants, and we would have tamales and Mexican hot chocolate, and we would sell to the people who are working in the restaurants. And then when we got enough money, we would take that money, and then I would give it to Dominga. And that's how we paid her every week in the very, very early days.
Wow. And where's Dominga now?
Yeah, still around. Yeah,
okay.
This week, not working with us, but still a big part of what we do. And as I tell our story, I always make sure that I remember Dominga. Yeah.
Well, shout out to Dominga if we send it to her. Muchas gracias, señora, por todo lo que ha hecho por dos hermanos.
Yes.
That is awesome. So yeah, let's dive into why we're here, right?
Sure.
You kind of talked about how you first handled payroll when it was just the two of you or a few of you, right? And when we're thinking about what we don't know, what we don't know, right? When you started expanding and went from one food truck, and then how did you make the next jump?
So we went from one food truck to a small taco cart.
Okay.
And, in the very beginning, I had a notebook. It was, I said I didn't have enough fingers and toes, Karina. I'd be like, did you work Saturday? And was that 8 to 4 or 8 to 5? And, I try and remember. And, as more people came to help, and we went from being stationary on the side of the road to being a mobile food truck. So we were now going to different places every day, and maybe sometimes it was a festival, if you would. And I had to find a solution other than the notebook. Right. I felt like, what if I lose this notebook?
Right.
It had everybody's hours in it, timekeeping. It had tips that needed to be allocated for payroll in it. And I spent more time, I think, worrying about the notebook than operating the business at one point in time. So the notebook had to go away. And then, we had to get some kind of a traditional payroll service, right? And of course, my fear was, can I afford this? Because now it's like, I've got to pay the people, and now I've got to pay for this service to help me pay the people.
Right.
So that was really a leap of faith, if you will, Karina. It was very scary as a new growing entrepreneur, even though it was just like one truck to a taco cart.
Right.
Our next leap was, stadiums. And so then it's like, how do you keep track of, 6 or 7 employees coming in the stadiums?
Right.
And we had to find different solutions. Like, could it be a mobile solution? So if they're in the commissary kitchen, or if they report to a building, then it's very easy to go to the wall and, type in your number and clock in. But what if you're going to a festival that's already at an event? And we really went to look for like a mobile option with some geofencing, right? So that they could clock in as they got close to the truck.
Okay.
And we could do timekeeping that way. So
That way.
It grew over time quickly. Yes.
Yeah. No, you brought up a really good point of when you're looking to expand, these are probably not the things that you're really thinking about, and it's like, okay, I have to hire, 5-7 people at a time. Okay, but the food truck uses, to clock in this, and, the commissary kitchen has their own system. And then, you have also parameters with corporate partners that
Yes.
they require certain, certain things and compliance and all this good stuff. So I love that you were able to, find ways to, and it could also be an, I don't know, you tell me, there could be an all size, a one size fits all model, but I think you really mastered, learning the different types of systems that you would need in place. Another thing too is when we're expanding or growing, we need people.
Yes.
Smarter than us.
Absolutely.
Right? Or even people, there was a saying is, in order to grow, you have to take action, right?
Yeah.
And in taking action, it means hiring people or making the sacrifice to hire people or systems to be able to grow, right? How long did it take you to manually enter tips and figure out schedules and all that stuff? How much is your time, right? If you think about, am I $50 an hour? Am I $25 an hour? Am I spending 8 hours a day, 8 hours a week? What is that true cost? And can I, and I'm sure that's what you did too, is making that conscious decision of, okay, I'm going to pay $300 a month for this payroll, or this time tracking system, which is going to give me back 8 hours a week to do something else.
Yes, to do something that might be strategic for the business or in operations or streamlining, things that really can affect profit, right?
Right.
And then you don't have to worry about losing that notebook, right? It's all in the system. It's all in the system.
It's all in the system. Trust the process, trust the systems. So now that you're, over those 20 employees across multiple locations, talk to us about, I know you talked about the systems that you use, but which ones did you find the most helpful in managing, that payroll more efficiently and accurately?
For me, I love the timekeeping solution that's integrated with the payroll. So it's, very all in one. Or maybe it's a POS system that helps keep track of the tips, because that is very time consuming. And then if you can't see where people are and in what they participated in, and maybe you allocate those tips to someone else, I mean, that really disappoints the employee that's worked all week, or in this case 2 weeks, and is expecting that certain amount of gratuities, and now you've given it to someone else, and now you've got to give it back to the original employee, but you can't take it from the one that you made the mistake with. So it ends up costing your business, Karina. It ends up costing you more.
Yes, and we don't like that. We like to make money. So question, just full transparency, tell us what those systems are, because I know a lot of our audience is curious, like, what do you use? How do you use it? When did you use it? When did you start?
Absolutely.
Who's your sales rep?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. So we use ADP. We've used ADP since conception. For timekeeping, though, I use a free app for a lot of, I think you get free timekeeping up to 10 employees. I don't remember the name of it, but it was really helpful. It was very free. It was free. I gave them a 4-digit number. They would clock in on an iPad, and it would record their clock ins and clock outs.
Nice.
And, I would just manually enter those numbers into the ADP. But now that I found that ADP has a timekeeping system that's all inclusive, that is extremely helpful for us. And as you grow, like you need people to help keep track of these things, Karina, the managers in the different locations reconcile their employees' timekeeping and then enter their employees' tips. And then when I get it at the end of the 2 weeks, I, go through and I look at what people were scheduled and then make sure that they clock in actually to what they were scheduled or something close. And if they're not there at all, I'm thinking, did they forget to clock in? Do we owe them for these hours? Did they not come in at all? Did they call off? And I have a helper that actually helps me reconcile those things. So it used to be all in here and no one knew anything but me. And God forbid that I couldn't, get payroll done on the right day. But as you grow and scale your team and your operation, you look for these solutions,
Right.
Some of these integrations. Once you get past timekeeping and payroll, then it's, maybe benefits, right? Maybe onboarding is they fill out their own information. So
Right.
you're not going off a piece of paper and have to retype it in. But I think that's my advice. I mean, you have to start with what you can and what you got when you first start out.
Absolutely.
I think the most important thing is, though, you have to start.
Yep. You have to take action.
Yeah.
And shout out to, Kelly, who is, she's a powerhouse herself too. She gets you, where you need to be, gets you organized. And that's what I'm talking about too. You have to hire people as you're expanding, because you're right. You can't do everything yourself. Right. And sometimes it's good to have, a check and a balance of, and being able to depend on others to help you grow. Because that is very difficult to do, and you're building your army, right? As you grow. So speaking of building that army, as you grow, and as you're filling in different positions, how do you balance competitive wages, and still be profitable, sustainable, right? And what mindset do you have to be in to be able to make those decisions, right? Looking at and right now too, I think the laws are changing. Well, they were going back and forth, right? They were like, there's this threshold for full-time employees at a certain salary without overtime, and so that's a lot to navigate as a business owner. And so when you're looking at competitive pay, what strategies have you used in order to keep good talent, right?
Absolutely. I think the key word there is strategy. And, I am trying and involve whoever I can. Sometimes it's just a sounding board. It could be another business owner, Karina.
Yeah.
What works best for them? How have they been able to retain top talent? We look for, out of the box ideas. So we're in stadiums. So,
Right.
People love to go to the stadiums here, right? The Ohio State University.
Yep.
Guys, if you haven't heard of them, they're national champions right now. And so, we try and find ways to, one of our values is be a part of it. So we try and find ways for people to be a part of it. And not everybody needs, a top wage to be a part of it. I think people want to feel a certain way, whether it's cared for, respected, included, all of these things that we are here at Dos Hermanos. And I think those are some of the strategies, out of the box strategies that we've had to be able to attract and retain top talent.
Nice. And then do you also, because we briefly talked about this too, there are some resources that partners like ADP have to look at, like, for instance, a full-time manager salary in Ohio makes this, or they have tools where when you are looking for, and I don't know if you've used any of these services, they will push out your job descriptions
Yep.
through ZipRecruiter and some other platforms. Is that another strategy that you use or have used in the
Absolutely. So
past?
we use Indeed a lot. Kelly actually runs that, and we kind of always keep the postings up at the free level. That way, if
Nice.
people are looking for Dose for Miles, we always have a whole bunch of applications to choose from, Karina. It's
Got
not like, oh my goodness, we need a bartender or a food truck.
it.
Which food truck drivers are the hardest to fill. I'm not sure why. I told Kelly, I'm
They're
like,
very specific.
yes, we have to change the name or something. Maybe a food truck. I don't know.
Operator or something.
Yeah, food
Yeah.
truck clerk or something that can drive. Right. We'll
Yeah.
add
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
can drive. Right.
Yeah.
But yes, that's another nice part of these HR solutions and payroll solutions is that there are these things about background checks, especially with our licensing here in Columbus. When you license a food truck, you are background checked as the owner. And if you operate in the public way, meaning downtown or off the curb or by a meter, then the people who work in the truck also have to be background checked. So
Nice.
having that solution in some of this is also very helpful. But, these things grow as your business grows.
Right.
Again, I say start with what you can and just make sure from the very beginning that you're compliant. I feel like, I say you can't build the house with the chandelier down in the mud before the concrete.
Yep. Yep.
You got to start and do the work with the concrete and the mud first. And even if you just have one or two employees, it's great to learn and make mistakes when it's just one or two people. That's very
Right.
easy to correct. Then when you have 20 or 30 employees, and now all of a sudden you realize, maybe you weren't allocating things in the correct way, and that could be very harmful to the business.
Yes. And speaking of that, we spoke about 5 common mistakes that business owners, do. And one of there's obviously there's many, but
Yeah.
we talked about the 5 most common, which was miscategorizing employees, right?
Yes.
We know that money is tight when you're first starting, and so the burden of paying taxes or even not knowing that you had to pay taxes can be detrimental to a business. And I spoke about this last session, is if we've seen very successful businesses not pay payroll tax, and how in the end had to file bankruptcy because the state was like, hand me my money. And so when you're looking at those challenges, it was misclassifying employees, not meeting deadlines, tax deadlines. Has that ever happened to you, and how did you fix it?
Yes. Yes and yes. Well, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yes,
And I'm going to say that I didn't know. I didn't know anything, right? When I first started, I was having the bookkeeper do the payroll, and then they would tell me how much to write the checks for. So I was writing the checks and putting them in the envelope, Karina, and then I would hand them out to all the employees, which was cumbersome in itself because it was like 20 envelopes and crazy. Then I get a book of checks, and all of a sudden I'd be out of checks. I got to go to the bank and get more.
Yep.
And I didn't realize that payroll taxes were not included in those at that time.
Oh, right. Because you're just paying out salaries. I'm not salaries. You're paying out hours, work hours. Got
That
it.
is correct. I'm just paying out the hours or the salaries, and then I would get a bill, and it would say, be a couple $1,000s for the payroll tax, and I wouldn't have allocated or put that to the side. So it would really get us in a cash flow crunch. So, after 1 or 2 months of that, Karina, like I was like, okay, there's got to be a better way, right? And that's when it was not that the payroll company, I'm sorry, not that the bookkeeper was doing anything wrong. It's just that I've been informed of how this worked.
Right.
But we found an easier and better solution with ADP of, when they take the money out for all the hours, they also take the money out for the taxes and file that for you as well at the same time. So it keeps you compliant and it keeps you paying on time, right?
Right. that's a great story, because your bookkeeper cannot read your mind. Right?
Yes.
Your bookkeeper might have thought, oh, she's taking care of, the taxes on her own, right? She's only paying me, $200 a month to do her bookkeeping. That's not in my scope of work, right? And so, yeah, that is definitely I don't want to say a flop, but it is something that we want to make sure that business owners are aware of, and
Yes.
not make that same mistake. And so let's jump into the licensing, because the licensing can also have its own challenges, and you have licenses, you have permits. These are a lot of things that you have to plan for as well. And so you've grown from now in the 5 locations.
We have 5 food trucks and 5 mortars. Yep.
Jesus. Okay. Payroll structure. How did you adapt and with those licensings as well?
Sure. It changed over time, and it's still changing, right? I think as we add more locations, like, we have to make sure that there's payroll set up, before we hire people. And, you have a restaurant of 10 people and they all have the right number and they're in the system. And you've got to, some of our locations have different EINs. So some of them have alcohol, some don't. So we separated the risks by structuring that way. And so some are run on payroll 1 week, and then it gives us a break. And then we do payroll on the other locations. So that way we're not paying out everybody the same week. And, we had the buddies thing going on where people were clocking other people in. So we went to a facial recognition.
Yes. So I have run into that issue before with another client, where the friend was clocking in because she was running late.
Yep.
And that's stealing, right? And unless we're aware that it's happening, I mean, there goes money for you as well. So that's incredible. So you had let me back up. You had some systems that do the fingerprinting, and then you moved away from the fingerprinting to the facial recognition. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. And ADP was able to provide those services to us. And then the mobile with the geofencing for when the food trucks are out at the festivals in different locations. So, I think over time you've got to, find the needs that fit not only yourself as the business owner, but also for your employee. Your employee has to feel comfortable that these timekeeping records are accurate, that these tips that are being reported are accurate, and that you're paying on time, Karina. That's a big thing. I think of one time when in the early days, I didn't realize about the holidays. I think it was the 4th of July holiday. So I didn't realize how that impacted payroll. So
that's a good one. Do you have to pay time and a half?
Yeah. Well, not only that, it's that when I went to process payroll on our regular day, a big banner came up on the website and says, your payroll will not be processed until after the holiday. So for the people on direct deposit, not a huge impact, like maybe by a day, but for people that still get the hard copy check, like the courier was not working until like Monday or Tuesday of the following week.
Right.
And that really, really sat here with me, because I felt like, wow, that's a big mess, Lisa. Yeah.
Because our employees are depending on that payroll, especially on the first of the month, to pay, to pay their rent, to pay their bills. And so I can definitely see how that could, like you said, it really sat with you.
Yeah. So that we don't, matter of fact, Kelly mentioned to me yesterday that there's 2 holidays coming up and they're on a Thursday. So she's like, we need to plan for that. So
no, that's a great point. A great point. I'm gonna go back a little bit, because I think I wasn't clear in saying the licensing. So licensing, what I meant was you have an alcohol license,
Yes.
in one. Okay, so we love, you know, the diversifying of incomes, and how do you make, you know, your business more profitable. One way is selling liquor, right? And so
It
but
helps.
that has its, it does help, but that has its own challenges in terms of payroll, because that's what you were talking about. You were talking about that specific location has to be set up on a different payroll cadence.
Yes, that is correct. Yes. And, you know, there's different. So when you're working a food truck, there's, you know, not a whole bunch of different job classifications, right? Or when you're working in a restaurant, well, full service restaurant with a bartender and a host and a line cook and a dishwasher, these are things and different pay rates because maybe some people work both. Maybe sometimes they're a server during the day, but then they work the bar at night and they may get
Mm.
paid different hourly wages, right? So you have to allocate for all of that. And I, you know, once I got into a full service restaurant, I knew I couldn't do this alone anymore. And I needed manager's help, someone to double check, you know, all the things and to make sure the employees were set up correctly. So yeah, very interesting as you get into alcohol licensing and all these things. Yeah, it's much different than how we started. Karina.
Yeah, no, those are some good nuggets, because that I would have, you know, that's a great strategy that you also implemented, of the different cadence. And that's a reality, you know, for some business owners that have different concepts and different types of structures. And so I'm going to pivot a little bit.
Sure.
I'm going to, you know, kind of talk about you and the business, and that growth, all those growth strategies, because you don't get to this point without, what I like to say is help.
Yeah.
Us as business owners, we sometimes shy away from asking for help,
Yeah.
but we know, and we know that successful business owners like yourself have had the courage to raise their hand and say, I need help. I want to
Yeah.
look for resources. I am committed to growing my business. And
Yeah.
I'm going to go out and find and talk to and move and shake this, you know, they're movers and shakers. And so when we talk about community partners and how they play a huge role
Huge.
in our huge role in our growth, in helping us both, you know, both in the operation side, as well as, you know, the professional growth side, right?
Yeah.
What part of, or let's list some of the community partners you've worked with. I know, you know, you were part of our restaurant business development
Yeah.
program,
Yeah.
and
It's cool. Yeah.
you've, yep, and you know, we've seen you grow. I think at the time you didn't have five. I think you were at one or two, I think, and then it just went, and I was like, oh, my jaw dropped. I'm like, how is she doing this? This is amazing. So tell us a little bit about how you've been able to really leverage community partners in your favor, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So early on, I saw the value, right, of the Feed the Soul program. I was part of the 10,000 Small Business 10 KSB program, ECDI, which is a local to Ohio nonprofit that helps food-based businesses and micro lending. They're the largest micro lender in the country, meaning that they do small business loans, low interest loans. And, you know, interestingly enough, through their community outreach program, Karina, they found us when I talked about being on the side of the road in the food
Yeah.
truck with, I mean, there's 4 seasons here in Columbus, Ohio. So rain, sleet, snow, hot, right? All of it. There. And I remember them telling us that they had this commissary kitchen where there were other like-minded individuals there doing the same thing that we were doing, which I didn't even know other people were doing this. It invited me to go take a look. And I'll never forget when I drove over there that day and I turned the corner and I saw the big, brightly colored food trucks and people in catering uniforms.
Garments, yeah, and uniforms.
chef coats and you're like, my people, right? People who love food, people who love the
Yeah.
hospitality industry, people who are crazy enough to drive these food trucks around,
Yeah.
right? And that's where the magic happens. Like when you get in an incubator situation or a cohort that Feed the Soul offered to me, is when you get around other people who are
Mm,
doing the same thing and they can help uplift you. So from that, I mean, there's been so many opportunities that ECDI has introduced us to, whether it's been local officials or getting into the Goldman Sachs program or our banking relationships. I found my bookkeeper from an informational night that they hosted. I found my
nice.
tax person from the same kind of way. A part of their women's business center. They've lent to us when we've been in need of lending, and they're actually our landlord for our commissary kitchen. And we hold special licensing with the Ohio Department of Agriculture. We're also inspected by the city of Columbus. And because we have such a big footprint and serve so many people, there is a lot more regulations around the
Right.
business now than
Right.
when we first started. So, there's magic in partnering with these nonprofits that more than truly help Karina. And they have the resources and the bandwidth to make the introductions to what we need as small business owners,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah. So they
And
really help us stay top of mind, I would say.
right. And that's why we're here. We're
Yeah.
here having this conversation because that is our goal. Our goal is to get resources in the hands of small business owners at either free or low cost, where you are now part of this culinary business network that we're literally building a enormous ecosystem of support for small businesses, and I hope that someday we become very similar to the EDCI.
Yeah.
And so also speaking about additional resources, you yourself are not only a public speaker, but you also mentor others through your food truck millionaire program. Talk to us about talk to us about that. What have you been up to? I didn't know. I was like, what is this?
I love it. I love it. So, yes, the Food Truck Millionaire is an LLC that I started to help food truck owners go from the concession window to the CEO seat.
Nice.
Because what I found is that people do want to scale and grow teams, and people get into food trucking for different reasons, whether they're a chef and they have these great recipes, which is more my husband, right? He loves that.
Right.
Also people that are competitive like me and love the business side of it and love to see the magic happen, and I love to be able to sit with them and help strategize and find new locations, find new revenue streams. Don't be afraid of payroll. Don't be afraid to hire a fractional CFO or whatever it is that they need as a support system for them. So it's been quite amazing, Karina, and through a lot of that visibility of both the nonprofit, Feed the Soul, Goldman Sachs. And I think you're going to share a picture here shortly.
Yep,
That
I'm about to do that.
we actually got invited to visit Vice President Kamala Harris's residence for Hispanic Heritage Month with her and the second
Nice.
gentleman, and share with them, what we're doing here in Columbus and what Dos Hermanos is about. And then 2 years after that, President Biden and Dr. Jill Biden invited us to the White House for a really amazing engagement of watching the movie Flaming Hot.
Okay.
So we were invited to come on the South Lawn, and when we arrived, there was a mariachi on the steps of the White House playing their hearts out with this amazing music, Karina. And then Eva Longoria was the
Host.
director. She was the director of that movie.
Oh,
Told
yes,
the
yes, yes, yes.
story, yeah, of the gentleman who made the flaming hot chips and all of that. So to be invited for entrepreneurship, if you will, was very special to me. It's a very special venue and just amazing. And but those relationships and that kind of visibility comes from being top of mind with nonprofits that have that kind of access. And that's really how that happened. The SBA had asked, do you know of someone in Columbus? and we were top of mind. And they said, yes, Lisa Gutierrez from Dos Hermanos. And that's how we started receiving invitations like that. So
nice. So is this it? Sorry,
this is it. Yeah, that's a picture there.
Did it? Sorry, I'm trying to add this one. Is this the movie?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Yes.
that is
Yeah.
hilarious. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, was it Jesse Garcia?
I believe so. Yeah.
Jesse Garcia. Yeah, so that story is very interesting. He was a janitor, right?
Yeah. He worked
He was
at the manufacturer facility for Frito-Lay, and they were
Frito-Lay.
trying to find a flavor to compete, I believe, with Cool Ranch Doritos.
Yes.
And he would go home and make get all the peppers and make this really spicy chip and be out in the parks and be giving it to people. It's just phenomenal. The grit, right? I think of the grit of and he called the CEO on the phone. I think they have it in the movie. And he's like, you put this out to the workforce to help solve a problem. And I believe I've solved it. And it's just amazing that those chips are in stores today, like right now. It's
everywhere, internationally. And then, so right now that's a really interesting conversation too. And I don't know if you guys will make that jump into CPGs, but and then have another payroll system for that. But yeah, it's we've seen a huge shift right now in the CPG world of people are wanting authentic, either authentic or creative products, especially in the food space. And that's a really interesting conversation too. Are you guys thinking of launching anything? Salsas, have you launched anything?
We haven't launched anything, but
Okay.
we're opening more locations, which is super fun.
Okay.
Yes, we have 3 locations in the hopper that will open by the end of next year, Karina. So we're super excited. And we just bought one more food truck, if you can believe it. But we are.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it.
We enjoy being immersed in our community here in Columbus, Ohio. Everyone has been so supportive. That's the full restaurant there, Easton Town Center.
North Market Bridge. You have Food Fort 2.0.
That's our commissary. Yeah, that's our
commissary.
Downtown North Market. There's a historic market that we're inside. Polaris Mall, which is great. That looks like a food truck. You can't tell from that picture there. But
I do. It does. I can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super fun. We thought that would be fun for families to bring the food truck feel inside.
Yeah, that is cool. And you said you have 5 food trucks.
5 food trucks. And then we
catering.
Very robust catering business as well.
Amazing.
Super fun.
That is fun. And then are you guys on Easy Cater? Does Easy Cater? Awesome. Yeah, that's another, kind of nugget that we give everyone. If you're doing catering, make sure you're on Easy Cater because, a lot of corporate partners only go through Easy Cater because it's such a trusted source as well.
It's been great for us. Actually, it's a good partnership and a lot of visibility there. I remember a business banker gave me a piece of advice. He said, I went into one of the branches, this is pre-COVID, and he stood up behind the cubicle and I had my Dos Hermanos taco truck t-shirt. And he said, do you have a business account here? And I said, yes, I do. And I was a little concerned why he was asking
you. Mm-hmm.
He said to me, he goes, do you take your food truck up to our Big Chase location? And I'm like, no, I didn't know you hosted food trucks. And he said, you're doing business with us. Why aren't we doing business with you?
Yep.
And that one conversation, Karina, led to us being the face for Chase for Business in 2019. We were on stage with Damon John and Gary Vanderchuck and being able to actually cater for Jamie Dimon, the president, of course, the CEO of Chase Bank. And I can't let us get off here without mentioning that you had us in the People magazine, right?
We did. We had you on People Español. Yep.
Which was amazing for us. So an amazing journey. The community has supported us, and the way that we give back is that our commissary kitchen is in an underserved community, Karina. And
Nice.
during COVID, people started to show up with a need for food. While the food trucks are parked there, I never thought of selling food out of the commissary kitchen.
Commissary.
Yep. And we started to sell food to the neighborhood because they had no access during COVID and beyond. And that is a
Right.
huge part of our business now, is serving an underserved community.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was going to pull up there was the JP Morgan Chase. Here it is.
Yes. You see it?
Let me pull that up and bring it to the stage. There it is.
Yay. Yeah.
Yep.
I love it. Yeah.
3 million.
Yeah. Great partners. Really have on our journey.
Yeah, so this was a great article as well that I read, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys are killing it out there. And also, okay, not to sound stereotypical or anything, but Columbus, Ohio's demographic is not predominantly Latino.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you all are a Oaxacan style, food space, would you say that you've cornered the market? Because that's because
we've cornered the market. That's, it's funny because there's a lot of competition here in Ohio.
Okay.
This is a foodie place. Like, large corporations come here. It's a test market for large corporations to try their products and try different offerings. And Wendy's home office is here. I mean, there's tons of, so just up at where our full service restaurant is, at the Easton Town Center, you had the picture up there a minute ago. There's six of us that sell tacos in some form or way, whether it's Southwestern style or Tex-Mex or authentic or whatever it is. There's 6 of us. And so I always tell, our team, how are we differentiating ourselves? How are we standing out? And I think the answer is, Karina, that we're just small and nimble enough that we can pivot on a dime. We can have a Dias de los Muertos event to celebrate, something, and not have to go through the corporate office and ask and all the things, right? That we can have community engagement and host people in our space. That was the real reason why we decided to do that concept, is we wanted to host people in our space and let them feel like our family. Hard to do that when you're on the side of the road in a food truck or a festival. So that's the magic and the beauty of that location there.
That is awesome. Yeah, I was wondering, I was like, man, they must have cornered that market. But no, you're right. And I think you're positioning yourselves also at the perfect time right now. Latinos, and I know your food isn't just for Latinos, it's also for everyone. But there has been an increase in Hispanic foods, as well as the Latino population is growing exponentially. And you are right on the money. And for us, we are a $2 trillion economy. And we would be, if we were a country, we would be the 8th largest country in terms of GDP. And so you guys are that 3 million. You could double X, within the next couple, years, because, the market is there. And so, making sure that you thrive, is our goal too, and so when we're, as we're looking ahead, what's next for Dos Hermanos? I know you said you're building 5 more, or you're going to launch 5 more food trucks, and how are you preparing? We'll tie it all back up. How are you preparing, for payroll and that HR infrastructure as you continue to grow?
Absolutely. So, we're looking for a bigger, better answer to that solution, right? Something that ties in all the locations, all the inventory, all the payroll, so we can get some real time data. Data has become very important to us, and some, real inventory information, all holistically across all the locations and the food trucks, which is a lot now.
Right.
And then, something else that's new for us is we have a fractional CFO, because
Okay.
you don't know what you don't know, Karina. I am not the numbers person. And I'm not the one who makes the food either. That's my brother-in-law and my husband.
Los dos hermanos.
That's the dos hermanos. Brothers. Let's get back to the two brothers. But yes, that's really, as we have scaled, we're looking for that next solution and more expertise on the team. And the things that I don't know, I try to hire for. And I think that's a strategic move for us to remain a leader in our industry. Like I said, it's saturated here for tacos. Tacos are very popular here.
Yeah.
And it's important to me that the recipes that my brother-in-law and my husband are so passionate about just remain top of mind for the brand, and that we continue to celebrate the heritage.
The heritage. Yeah, no, that's amazing. You said something about a fractional CFO, and that's some great strategies that a lot of business owners don't know exist. And so I love that you touched on that. And there's options. You just have to raise your hand and say, I need help, whether it's through us, guiding you all, or just making sure that you ask another culinary business owner as well. But my last question as we wrap up is, what sauce, spice, or food are you enjoying right now?
Mole.
Oh, yes.
The mole.
Yes. Yeah.
I love
But
it.
Not all moles are mole. Not all moles are the same, right? So
yes.
Are you making the mole? Is your husband making the mole?
No, I'm not making any mole. But yes, my brother-in-law and my husband are making the mole. And Karina, it is phenomenal. I always said I wanted a mole flight. We haven't got there yet because we only have
Talk to me about the mole flight.
I was like, that's in my vision, is I would love a mole flight that, people could share and taste the different moles and talk about them and why they're the different colors of the different peppers and so on and so forth. So I see that in our near future if I have my way. But yeah, that's the other second one is probably our guacamole salsa. So it's, just tons of goodness of avocado and pureed and all the secret stuff. And people love that. Like they pour it over tacos, and the guacamole salsa is probably.
Hey man, that's something you can bottle.
That's something you can bottle, but you heard me say like mole was already coming out of my mouth before you.
I know, that's so funny. Yes, I love making mole too. Oh yeah. Okay, mole with chicken or emoladas?
No, chicken. Yeah.
That's funny. I love making mole. I even went to Mexico City and I was like, I need to try Mexico City mole. Nothing compares to my mole. So no, just kidding.
Well, that's the beautiful thing. There's different, like we talked about the tamales. There's different things from different regions, which is just so beautiful about all of the Latin communities.
Right. And there's so many recipes online that you could go, months with making a different type of mole a day. All right. Well, any final thoughts? Any, talking about the 5, common mistakes, in payroll. If you had to talk to your former younger self, what is the one thing that you would, advice that you would give to yourself?
I think you said it just a little bit ago. Don't be afraid and ask for help. There's a lot of organizations, a lot of free services, a lot of just people that want to help and give back and share information with you. And there's nothing that someone else hasn't already gone through. I spoke with a woman earlier and we were sharing stories and she's like, you make me feel so normal. And I'm like, well, of course, everybody goes through this.
Right.
And I don't think that people understand that everyone as entrepreneurs, everybody starts small and they don't know how to do payroll and all these things. And it's what you do as you grow. You know, when I was a manager at the Cheesecake Factory, I never thought I was going to own my own restaurant. I had no desire. It wasn't even on my horizon. And again, my husband's friend showed up with this truck. And if you would have told me I would have been here 13 years with, you know, the amount of volume that we do and the amount of people. So I always say, whatever you're doing right now is preparing you for later.
Yes.
So pay attention where you are now. Another thing I say is you can't be it if you can't see it. So, you know, get around, get in the rooms where people that are growing and thriving and listen. You know, don't just aspire to have a seat at the table, get paid to sit at the table is something else that I tell people. Make sure that you know your self-worth and get paid for your expertise. So if I can just leave people with those nuggets, and I wish everyone the best. This has been an amazing hour, Karina. Thank you for letting me share about Dos Hermanos and our funny stories. And I hope to inspire people to stay the course, be resilient, and get payroll.
Yes, do it right. Do it right, because it's going to cost you.
That's right.
And we know that, you know, we want to keep every penny, every dollar in the business, because that's the way we can grow. No, yes, thank you so much for walking us through your journey. I say this all the time. We meet amazing business owners every day, and your stories are meant to be told. And if, you know, who else is going to tell them if not us? And so thank you again for walking us through your amazing journey. And, you know, from the first borrowed truck to a multi-million-dollar business with a thriving team, your wisdom, you know, around mastering payroll while still scaling is incredible. And so thank you again for telling us your story. And so to our audience, thank you for watching today. We hope you found this session insightful, and we know there's a lot to think about when you're looking to make that jump into expansion or even growth. And if you're looking to expand, know that just let us know. We're here for you. And if you haven't signed up for the Culinary Business Network, I'm going to put it down right here. And also in the comments below, you'll also see how to join the Culinary Business Network. Again, for less than $1 a day, you can continue to get programming like this, hearing from successful business owners, because we know we make mistakes, and how can we prevent, you know, those costly mistakes as well. You'll get live trainings, you get access to templates and business resources, all at your fingertips. And so next week, join us for our Let's Toast virtual happy hour. We'll have some special guests, and they'll be serving up the tea on industry trends, as well as celebrating you and celebrating some of your wins. And so, again, remember, you are not alone in this journey. And when you thrive, we all thrive. And so keep showing up with purpose and passion. And we will see you all soon. Thank you. Bye.